What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode number 40 of my weekly live Q&A. My name is Danny Segura. I am a mixed martial arts reporter for MMAJunkie.com, and joining us today, he hasn't made an appearance in quite some time, is Hachiko. He's out here helping me out. Mira, say something, Hachi. Say something. If you thought he was thick before, he's gotten thicker now. He's so heavy. He was like 22 pounds when you guys first saw him. When I first adopted him back in April. Now he's 26. So he's gotten a big boy. Right, Hachi? Look at that. So anyways, that's Hachiko right there. I know there hasn't been a long update for Hachiko. So there he is. He's doing well. He's thriving down here in South Florida. He's been shedding a shit ton just because... You know, obviously, it's a lot harder down here in Miami than in New York. So we've been, I have to brush them like every day because it's just a ridiculous amount of hair. So anyways, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I know there is a little bit of a schedule change. We usually go live on Tuesdays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. But obviously, my schedule, like last week, it changed. So I had to move things to Thursday here. So I appreciate you guys tuning in despite the schedule change. We didn't get a whole lot of questions for Twitter due to the fact that there was a schedule change, which I expected. But nonetheless, the live chat is still open. So whatever you guys want to talk about on the live chat, go ahead and throw stuff on there, and then I'll get to it. All right. So a lot going on. Obviously, we got Bellator 252 tonight with the Bellator Featherweight Grand Prix resuming, so ain't some interesting stuff there. Then we got this weekend, UFC Vegas 14, right? Now we're at 14, aka UFC on ESPN Plus 40, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, Rafael dos Anjos apparently is fighting Paul Felder. He was supposed to fight Islam Makhachev, but Islam had to withdraw from the bout earlier in the week, and the commentator, Paul Felder, stepped up, and now he's fighting RDA. A lot of people were like, this doesn't make any sense, because I wrote something like on Twitter like, wow, Paul Felder's a wild man, love it. And a lot of people were like, dude, he's going to go in wrecked. He hasn't fought in a good while. He didn't have a training camp. He's retired. His mind's out of the game. Like, he's going to get fucked up. I don't necessarily 100% disagree with that. However, I just think this makes so much sense. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's already kind of on his way out, right? That he like has this commentator gig. He's making money through there. And fighting is not really his number one priority anymore. Plus, he's already older. How old is Paul Felder? Like, I think he's quite old. He's definitely like mid-30s. Paul Felder's 35, exactly. So, you know, he's not a young buck. And exactly, dude, he didn't do a training camp, so he didn't have to spend time away from his family. He didn't have to spend a bunch of money in training camp, which is expensive, and everything that goes into it. So basically, this is just like, yo, just go in there and compete, and you're going to make a bunch of money. Probably more money. I'm sure they offered him a bit more than what he's contracted for. This is just a guess, given the fact that he is saving a card, because right below that, I mean, there's really no other fight you could put in as the main event. I mean, you're going to put the co-main, Razak Alhanas versus Chaos Williams. Like, that's no main event. So it's really saving that card. So I'm sure he got highly compensated, didn't have to spend a dime on training camp. Again, just in and out. He's going to make some money. If he loses, he lost to a former lightweight champion, Rafael dos Anjos. If he wins, he beat exactly just that. So it's not at all a difficult situation for him. I think this is a win-win for him, right? And if he loses, hey man, I was retired, I'm going back to retirement. F this, you know. But I'm sure he's gonna, even in defeat, I expect a good performance from Felder. But anyhow, so a lot going on in the world of mixed martial arts, like always. So again, if you got questions, throw them on the live chat, and I will get to them now. We did have one question on Twitter. I didn't cut it out just because it was just one. So I'll just answer it now. And it's the Seaside. My good friend over at the Seaside. He wants to know, who do you predict as the Ultimate Fighter coaches? So apparently the Ultimate Fighter is supposed to come back next year at some point. And there's no word on the coaches just yet. I don't know. This is a weird one because we're in an era where the UFC is cranking events literally every weekend. I've been working pretty much every weekend since I can remember. It's been months since we've been working every weekend, and which is fine. I'm not complaining yet, but yeah, we're in this era where like the UFC is trying to put on as many fights as possible. They've obviously grown a lot because a lot of sports aren't in a halt, and they have an ability to get ahead given their circumstances and how they operate things. And yeah, so like I wonder who do they possibly want to put in the shelf for X amount of months, right? No, zero competition. I mean that's a tough question, right? My guess, I think it's possible. Here, I'll say this: I'm not gonna guess on who will be on the Ultimate Fighter. So sorry, Seaside, to sort of avoid your question, but I will say who maybe I'd like to see and who kind of makes sense a little bit. I recently spoke to Valentina Shevchenko, right? She is she's interested in a trilogy fight with Amanda Nunes, and she said, I mean, you can go and read the article on MMAJunkie.com or go to my podcast, Hablemos MMA, and check out the interview in Spanish. But she's like, it's logical. It makes sense. She's running easily through everybody. I'm the only one that's given her a tough fight. In fact, I won the last fight. And since, you know, she made an interesting point about this too. Came across well in Spanish. I don't know when I translated in the article if it had the same pop, if you guys read it. But she believes that she won that second fight. And one of the reasons why the fight was given to her is because she had status as a champion. And the judges that night saw that. And that there's definitely something to that, I would have to say. I'm not talking about specifically for that fight, but just in general. I mean, the good old saying of, you know, you have to go in there and beat the champion to be the champion. It didn't come out of nowhere, right? There's definitely a thing with like close fights, right? Jon Jones Reyes, close fights that tend to favor the champion. Now, I haven't done the research exactly on that where, you know, I have a percentage of how many times the champion wins in a close decision or perceived close decision. But from my experience of covering the sport, it kind of feels that way. So basically she's saying, you know, I'm champion now. I'm a champion of 125 pounds. I've established myself as a, you know, big and dominant champion in this organization. I think this time around, that's going to be different. And I would kind of have to agree with that. I think a fight nowadays would feel and be much different than a fight back then. Obviously, it's huge. The women's GOAT versus one of the most dominant champions we've seen in women's MMA, obviously Valentina Shevchenko. So, look, Nunes just had a baby. I'm sure she wants to spend time with her baby, and she just suffered an injury, which caused her withdrawal from the Megan Anderson bout. Valentina Shevchenko, at the end of the month here in next week, right, she'll be defending her belt against Jennifer Maia. And to be quite honest, those are two divisions. If you look at the entire UFC, those are probably the best two divisions to put on hold right now. Like 145, I know there's that fight with Megan Anderson, but beyond that, there's nothing really going on at 145. 135, we're talking about obviously women's weight classes. I think there would have been some interest if Irene Aldana would have defeated Holly Holm, especially convincingly. You would have gone, okay, well, we got a contender here that needs a title shot, that's ready for a shot at the champ. But that didn't happen. So I don't know how interested the UFC is in making a rematch with Holly Holm, given the fact that, you know, Nunes knocked her out pretty bad, right? Also, Juliana Peña losing to Germaine Duran. I mean, that would have been interesting if Peña would have won, but she didn't. So I think you could potentially make an interim title fight between Holm and Germaine. They got history, a little bit of beef, two strikers. Could be a fun rematch, right? That could be for an interim title. And at 125, no disrespect to the ladies there, but Shevchenko's just miles above everybody else. And if she beats Jennifer Maia, you really got to wonder who's next. I mean, all the top contenders have already lost to Shevchenko pretty much. I think the only interesting challenges there would maybe be, you know, Cynthia Calvillo, but I think she's got a little bit to go. Jessica Andrade is a very interesting challenge. I know I've talked about that openly here on this live Q&As. But even then, I think she needs still another fight. So, again, there's still some ground to be made by the current interesting contenders at that division. So, I think Nunes versus Shevchenko would make sense to put in that situation because, again, it wouldn't hold up the divisions too much because of what I just explained. Two, there's a nice rivalry build up there. For those that don't remember, and I kind of forgot about it, I was kind of looking at their second fight and some of the build up. Remember when Nunes really put her fist on her face and Sean Shelby had to step in there and break them off? Even after their second fight, I think like Shevchenko like kicked her off, and there's some bad blood there. I don't know. I know they don't really publicly say it, but they low-key don't like each other. It definitely feels like, there's some rivalry there. Plus, again, it'd be a huge fight for women's MMA. I think that makes sense. Nunes and Shevchenko as coaches. I'm about it. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but anyways, so yeah, that was a question by the Seaside. Good question. We'll see what happens, but I'm also here to talk about champion versus champion, right? But we've seen in other Ultimate Fighters that it doesn't necessarily have to involve a champion, right? Uriah Faber and many others have been coaches without holding belts, so that could definitely be a thing. Ollie says, how far do you think Vadim Nemkov will go in the UFC light heavyweight division? Top 15? Or in the UFC's light heavyweight division, top 15? So that's an interesting question. And the easy answer is I don't know exactly. But to go into more detail on that, I think we need to see a little bit more on Vadim Nemkov. I think, obviously, that fight, we knew him entering into the Ryan Bader fight that he was a very good fighter. No doubt about that. But beating Ryan Bader definitely like raises some eyebrows where you're like, okay, this guy's obviously good, but how good is he, right? I think there was also some circumstances with Ryan Bader doing his first cut to light heavyweight in 3 years or some crazy like that. And a few other interesting things. Also, he's a much older fighter nowadays, right? And certainly, obviously, I'm not taking anything away from Vadim Nemkov. He's clearly a very skilled fighter. But only one victory over Ryan Bader, given those circumstances, doesn't answer absolutely everything. I think I can have a little bit of a more clear answer after his next fight. It looks like, actually, Nolan King, my colleague over at MMAJunkie.com, he spoke to Scott Coker. And I believe the move is to make Phil Davis versus Vadim Nemkov the rematch, and then have Corey Anderson wait for the winner. I know Vadim already beat Phil Davis, but I think if he does it a second time, especially convincingly, now you really got to wonder about his potential and his place among the best light heavyweights in the planet. I mean, even just now with the belt, you kind of still have to wonder about that, which precisely you're asking the question. But I would say that let's look at the UFC light heavyweight rankings here. I would say he's definitely top 15. I think top 10, I don't know. Let's see. So here are the UFC light heavyweight rankings as of Thursday, November 12th. By the way, today's my 1-year anniversary with MMA Junkie since I switched over from MMA fighting. So that's kind of cool. But anyways, let's see here. All right, so we'll start at 15. Paul Craig. Can Vadim Nemkov beat Paul Craig? I think yes. I'm very confident about it. I think stylistically, actually, that'd be a pretty bad fight for Paul Craig. Given the fact that he's good off his back and Vadim Nemkov is very good on the top. He's got great ground and pound, very good jiu-jitsu. Good striking as well. I think he beats Paul Craig. I think he beats Shogun Rua, who's at 14. I think he beats Jimmy Crute at 13. I think he beats Ryan Spann at 12, although Ryan Spann's pretty damn good. I think Ryan Spann would definitely have a chance in that. 11, Magomed Ankalaev. Interesting there. 10, Misha Serkinov. I like Misha a lot. I think he's a very skilled fighter. But even then, that'd be actually a very even fight in my opinion. Johnny Walker, I'd pick Vadim Nemkov to beat Johnny Walker. Nikita Krivlov, that's where it starts getting tough. That's number 8. Volkan Ozdemir, another tough one. Anthony Smith, from what I saw against Rakic, I think Vadim Nemkov beats Anthony Smith. That's already the top 6 right there. Jiri Prochaska. Alexander Rakic, very good fighter. I think Rakic wins that one. Dominic Reyes, I think Reyes wins that one. Gloria Teixeira, I'd pick Teixeira on that one. So, and then Jan Blachowicz, your champion. So I think as of right now, I think I would dare to say he's a top 10. I think top 5, that's where it gets iffy, right? Where you verse the Dominic Reyes, the Rakic, the Gloria Teixeiras. But as of now, I think I would have him in my top 10. And he's young. How old is Vadim Nemkov? I think he's pretty damn young. Let's see here. I think he might be still in his 20s. He's 28 years old. He's my age. He was born in 92. So that dude's just going to get better. For sure. Yeah, I think he has potential to be top 5 for sure. Easy. Also, the UFC's light heavyweight division is not the strongest right now. I think when Scott Coker says they have the best 205-pound division, I don't agree exactly, but I think there's something to it. And part of that is because the 205 division is a lot weaker than what it used to be years prior in the UFC. Just in general in talent. I feel like talent has shifted. The best talent used to be at 205, 185, more or less. And then it's kind of shifted to like 155, 170. And then now, until recently, we're seeing 135 just become absolutely ridiculous. But yeah. All right, let's go to the other question here. Good question, Ollie. Giving Bellator some love. The one that got away. Hi, Danny. Do you watch boxing at all? I do. I watch the big fights for the most part. The most recent fight that I saw was the Lopez Lomachenko. That was a good fight. One was, I basically watched the bigger fights, right? Obviously the heavyweights, with Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Wilder. Obviously when Eric Canelo fights, I'm watching. Really the bigger names. But to say that I know the rising contenders and the prospects and all that, no. For those that don't know, I actually did cover boxing for a little bit with Fight Hub TV. I interviewed Sergey Kovalev when he was gonna fight. Was it Hopkins, right? Interviewed a few others. Interviewed Keith Thurman. I've interviewed him several times. He's a very cool dude. I actually have some cool stories with the guy. He's very cool. Very, very nice guy. Very, very interesting character. And a few others I've interviewed in the boxing world. So to answer your question, I do know a little bit about boxing. I do watch the bigger fights, but my knowledge is mainly in the MMA world. But I'm no dummy when it comes to boxing as well. Button up that shirt. Dude, I'm in Miami. This is how you rock it. Terrence, donating to the Super Chat. Also, the Super Chat is open. If you want to support this channel, feel free to donate some money so I can invest on this thing and make it look pretty. But yeah, thank you, Terrence. Always coming through. Let's see. What ideas have you brought to a former... What ideas have you brought to a former employer such as MMA fighting that they would let you do but still think it's worth doing? For example, I love Coffee Talk and wish it continued. Coffee Talk wasn't actually, I know I was involved in it and I hosted it over at MMA Fighting, but that actually wasn't my idea. That was Esther's, I think. Yeah, and she's no longer with MMA Fighting. She's no longer in MMA, period. But yeah, I mean, obviously that's like impossible to do now because Coffee Talk really like what it really was like there's I liked Coffee Talk. I'm not here to talk shit about it, but I thought it was great. Many people liked it. I mean, Terrence, you're asking about it now. My only issue with it was, I guess, we did have like the post-fight show and that was very much like, again, video format, breaking down the top storylines of the card. So it was very much kind of like a similar thing and in a very close window, I would say. That'd be like my only comment about it. But what made it different was like, one, it was longer. One, it involved more people. One, it was in a setting, because believe it or not, like settings matter so much. You have no idea. Like if you're interviewing somebody via Skype versus interviewing somebody in the studio versus interviewing somebody at a media day, like all that changes the dynamic of the interview and the type of answers you're going to get and the type of questions you should ask, frankly. So obviously that with the Coffee Talk, it was a little bit more of a more laid back scene. Obviously it involved more people and it was more chill and you got to like sort of process a little bit more also far more removed from, a few hours removed from the event. So usually fighters put out statements on their wins or losses. Sometimes, the press conference is over, there's a little bit more information to process, to talk about. So that'd be the only difference. But yeah, I thought it was cool. I know I kind of just made some criticism, but you could do that about anything. But yeah, no, I thought it was a cool thing. The problem with that, I don't think the reason why they're doing it is because there's no really event coverage. So everything's basically done through these like virtual things. So yeah, you would need like, first of all, a big team, which you can no longer travel with a big team because of COVID precautions, and you would have to go to events, man. There's not really events going on right now as far as like traveling to different cities. It's Vegas, which is virtual and limited media, and Abu Dhabi, which is far as shit, and again, limited media, and a good amount of it is virtual. So it kind of just makes no sense to have that kind of show now. But anyways, to answer the first part of your question, I'll just talk about Junkie now. I mean, I brought in the idea of creating Hablemos MMA, which is the Spanish language podcast that I host and produce. And I had that idea for quite some time, and I was very passionate about it. Obviously, I'm still am. That's one of the projects that I'm very proud of and very happy about. And I've been getting tons of good feedback from all across the world. Like, you guys have no idea. People from Spain are reaching out. People from Argentina are reaching out. People that barely speak Spanish that are trying to learn and are super into the sport constantly reach out to me like, oh, my Spanish is getting a lot better just listening to your show. And I've gotten a lot of support from that, and people love it. People love it, and it's very much needed in the space. Like, stuff in the English sphere is, you can always bring new stuff and bring, create new content and cool different ideas. I'm not saying that you can't, but I don't want to say it's saturated, but obviously there's just a lot more of it. There's a lot more sites that cover it on a professional basis. You see like big newspapers, right? The Guardian and others like get involved in it. BBC recently. Whereas in the Spanish world, like, I can't think of like a single news outlet that reports like original news. I mean, there's Combate, but that's in Portuguese. In Spanish, like, I don't know of one. And I've been doing this for how many years, and I know and I know the market well. So part of my goal with Hablemos MMA was to sort of, one, be able to highlight and give all these fighters a platform and stuff like that, which is awesome. Two, do content in my native tongue, Spanish. And three, help grow the market. I hope this, this helps grow the Spanish market as well, by bringing in content, right? Bringing in a little bit more exposure and putting some light on these names. So, that's an idea that MMA Junkie, my editor, Simon Samano, loved, and he supported me, and they've been great. USA Today Sports has been amazing with that, and they've given me all the support that I needed to go on and create that show, and so far it's been a success. People love it, and we've had solid interviews. So yeah. There's other stuff as well, but probably can't really talk about them a whole lot, right? That'd be lifting the curtain a little too much. Balin the Hobbit. Should Jon Jones versus Airbender fight at 205? Yeah, I think that's the only weight class you can make it. It doesn't make sense to make it at heavyweight. Neither of those, it's the weight class that neither of those guys naturally fight in. So I think 205 is the way to go. And there's no way in hell Jon Jones gets down to 185 pounds. Maybe at catchweight, I wonder how, because like Jon Jones has never missed weight, right? And he's never really had like difficulty making weight. Like, we've never seen Jon Jones like almost fainting on the scale like we've seen Jose Aldo or many other fighters do, or like Jessica Ai shaking on the scale, right? So that lets me know that he could probably cut a little bit more, and he's been making championship weight, so 205 on the dot for how long, and he looks pretty damn good on the scale doing it. He could probably get to 200, I think. Maybe. I don't know. Especially now with this potential move to heavyweight. My guess is that he's probably doing some bulking now. But I think, a catch weight at 200, that'd be kind of fun. It doesn't have to be for the belt. I mean, if they want to make it more interesting, they could, but that could also create more issues. I think at this point, and I know Dana kind of backtracked on this. Maybe he listened to Hablemos MMA. I don't know, or my recap for that last weekend's fight, but the Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya fight is like so not the fight to make. Like, it just makes absolutely no sense. You got two newly minted champions. One has only defended the belt twice at 185 and still has challengers left in that weight class. The other guy literally like a month and a half ago just won the title. And we got a clear contender with Glover Teixeira. So it just makes absolutely no sense. And also, this is not Izzy and Jon Jones where they've been going back and forth for years and there's some sort of buildup. Literally, the guys just started talking about each other last week. So is it a super fight? Like, is it really going to, break the bank? Is it going to be a blockbuster fight that is going to sell you 1 million pay-per-view buys? Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya? No. So you're going to hold up two divisions. You're going to deny contenders, rightful title shots for that. It just makes no sense. And then all the problems that could create with having a two-division champion, obviously slowing down two divisions that are historically two divisions that have sold a lot and have held some of the biggest stars in the sport, in the company. To put them on hold for that fight makes no sense. It would make sense for a Jon Jones one, but not a Jan Blachowicz yet. Maybe down the line, if Jan defends the belt a few times, runs out of contenders, same story with Israel Adesanya, then that fight kind of makes sense, but not at this point. So I think the move is have Glover fight for the belt at 205, have Israel Adesanya defend the belt at 185, and then see what happens with Jon Jones. If Jon Jones drops back down and picks up his belt, now's the time to make the Izzy fight. I think that's the move. But yeah, they should fight at 205 or at a catch weight. No way it would be a heavyweight. That'd make no sense. All right, let's see here. Same Balling the Hobbit with another question. Should Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor fight be for the vacated 155 belt? Well, apparently Habib might come back. That's what Dana says, and he's thinking about it, and he's going to talk to his mom. As funny as that sounds. No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. I mean, we'll see what changes, right? We're still in November. That fight is in the works for January 23rd. So yeah, we'll see what happens from here till then. I mean, think about this. If like the UFC were to like have an update on Habib and say Habib takes another month, so we're talking about here like mid-December, and he's like, yeah, guys, I'm done. Yeah, I'm not coming back. Then you got a whole month to promote, or over a month to promote the McGregor and Poirier as a title fight. So I think that would make sense. So I think the answer for now is no. Let's wait and see what happens with Habib. And once we get that, resolved, once we get some sort of resolution on Habib's end, then you decide what to do with Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor rematch. However, if that does happen, I do agree that that is the fight that makes the most sense to have for the interim title. Or not the interim title, the vacated belt. So the answer, maybe. We'll see. It all depends on Habib. Is the baddest mother effer belt a joke or the most prestigious belt? Certainly not the most prestigious belt, but I wouldn't say it's a joke either. There's definitely something to it. I mean, it was fun. I was there. I held it. It looked cool. It certainly felt like a title fight, kind of, like the magnitude of it, despite not being a legit title fight. I liked it. I think every now and then, if the UFC kind of throws these curveballs and kind of spices things up and changes the monotony of how the system works, I think that's fun and exciting. Now, I wouldn't like to see it all the time. I think that'd be kind of lame and that'd be then kind of gimmicky. But the way they handled that situation, and it's been handled since, I think it's perfect, and I think they did a great job with that idea. All he's saying here about the 205 division getting good. Yeah, I mean, there's some there's some solid prospects coming up. Even Jimmy Crute, he's like, what, 24 or something like that? The dude's looking very good. I think there's even the guy that just switched, Jerry, who just switched from Ryzen, right? I mean, even him, like, that's an interesting name. There are some interesting names coming up in the 205 division. I think, again, right now it's in a bit of a funk, but I think maybe a few years down the line, things could be kind of interesting. Let's see here. Marco says, can we see you in between the links? I don't know what you mean by that. Balin the Hobbit, who should Michael Chandler fight to make his UFC debut? I've said it many times before. Tony Ferguson. That's the move. Tony Ferguson is the move. It just makes sense. You know, I know Tony Ferguson doesn't want that bout, and he sees Michael Chandler sort of a step down because he's got no fights in the UFC, and he kind of takes offense that Chandler is apparently making a boatload of money. But yeah, I think that fight makes the most sense, and that'll probably determine who the next contender is, depending on how things shake out at 205. Obviously, if there's a vacant title between McGregor and Poirier, as we just talked about, then it would kind of make sense for that fight to be number one contender. However, if Khabib all of a sudden comes back, then your fight between McGregor and Poirier becomes kind of the number one contender, and then a potential fight between Chandler and Tony Ferguson would kind of get pushed back a bit. So yeah, I don't know. That's definitely the fight to make, in my opinion. I think Chandler also versus, RDA would have made a lot of sense. Obviously, it would have been very short notice for Chandler to step up, and he was just coming off a weight cut, because remember, he did a weight cut for October 24th, because he was a replacement opponent for the Khabib Justin Gaethje fight. So it just wasn't possible for him to get down in that weight on short notice. But the matchup itself, RDA versus Michael Chandler, makes a lot of sense for both parties. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think definitely a former champion or a Tony Ferguson-like figure, which has a lot of prestige in the division. So I think that's the move for sure. Heavyweight for Izzy versus Jon makes perfect sense if Izzy beats Jan. I would only say that to be true if Jon Jones were to capture the belt at heavyweight. It'd be, and even then I wouldn't like to see it, if I'm being quite honest with you. But would it sell? Maybe. The fact that Izzy would be 185 champ, beats Jan, right? That's if. Becomes 205 champ. And if Jon Jones, within that span, does go up in weight class, does compete at heavyweight and get a belt there, and all of a sudden you got a champ versus a heavyweight champ at heavyweight for the heavyweight title. Obviously, that would be a huge career moment for Israel Adesanya, becoming a three-weight champion. But again, I already don't like the champ thing all that much. I think it's fun in certain situations, and I think it makes sense in certain situations. But I don't think it's too practical, because we've yet seen someone defend both belts simultaneously. The only person that has been able to do that is Amanda Nunes. But the only reason why she's been able to do that is because, one, women's bantamweight is not as strong right now. She's cleared out that division. And two, 145 is not a weight class, is not a division. So that division can remain on ice as long as it wants. That division, right? Because it's really composed of just a handful of fighters. But that's really the only reason why she's been able to do that. But if there's actual two divisions, on hold, and then you're planning on throwing a third one with heavyweight, man, I just don't think that's good for business. And I frankly wouldn't like that, and I wouldn't think it'd be fair for contenders at 185 and 205 and heavyweight, all waiting just because, there's a super fight ahead, So I think it would make more sense for Jon Jones to drop to 205, and challenge Izzy, who would then be double champ, right? There's a lot of ifs here. And see if Jon Jones can become champ, being heavyweight and regaining his light heavyweight title. I think that would make the most sense. But Izzy, 3 belts. Again, I know it's good for him and all that. I'm sure he disagrees with what I'm saying, but I personally wouldn't like to see that. The one that got away, Daniel, are you planning to move back to New York at some point, and do you need to be there for work when things get back to normal? Yeah, kind of. I mean, as of now, New York, there's no point of me in being in New York. I mean, there's no media events going in New York. Right, Bellator, when they had their Connecticut events, they used to have media days that you can attend to with a lot of big names. Usually those were in Midtown, around Times, like close to Times Square, at the Viacom offices. So I would do that. The UFC would come to New York, right, twice a year, usually around April and another time in November with some big events. Bellator would also have one event in New York. And yeah, there's fighters there. Media tours go on every so on, right? So before pandemic, it made sense. But now that there's a pandemic, everyone's avoiding New York. So, or not New York in specific, but any big city, right? New York is a huge city. So it really makes no sense for me to be up there as of now. But when things return to normal, yeah, that's the plan, to get back to New York. And we'll see whatever this new normal is, right? So far right now, it's just Vegas and Abu Dhabi. That's it. But yeah, we'll see what this new normal is. There's already cases that are increasing in New York. And there's definitely a second wave coming. One of the reasons why I came down to South Florida, just to have more space and have good weather. But yeah, if a second wave hits really hard and they shut down New York again in the winter, a lot of businesses are not going to make it through. And yeah, it's just going to be a rough situation to be in, just like living in that city, just being all shut down in the winters. It's going to suck. Because really, for those that don't know about New York, about living there, in the winter, because it's so cold and there's snow everywhere, all you do is go to restaurants and go to bars and go to people's houses. That's it. That's all you do. Nothing else. Outdoors activities are eliminated unless you like go upstate and go skiing or something like that, right? But for the most part, like in the city, yeah, like all activities are eliminated. So because of COVID, if there's a second wave, I'm sure they're not going to pack it, like bars indoors and restaurants where there's absolutely no outdoor seating because of the weather, and then just have like the second wave even bigger. So we'll see. I don't know what the government's going to do, what the local government's going to do there. But as of now, yeah, there's plans of going back to New York, but just not now. We're going to see how this thing shakes out. Should Andrade fight for the belt next, or should she have to fight one more time, possibly against Murphy? Andrade versus Val is fire. I agree. I love Andrade versus Val. Look, I think a fight with Murphy would make a lot of sense and would determine who's the number one contender. I think those two girls right now are killing it, and yeah, they seem to be the front runners for a title shot at 125 pounds. So. Yeah, I'm all in. I mean, that fight makes complete sense. Now, if it would eliminate a contender, but that's what the sport is about, right? Now, it kind of makes sense to eliminate contenders in divisions like 135, right? 155, 170, where there's too many contenders, right? So you do have to eliminate to kind of keep a healthy ecosystem in a division. But given the fact that 125 is not that stacked and there's not that many contenders, this would be a scenario where the two top contenders, Andrade and Murphy, this would be probably best practice to not match them up together so you can preserve them and have them fight other people that might be a little bit of easier matchups, and then you throw Andrade into a title fight, and then you have Murphy waiting right there. So you're not left in a situation where a title fight just ends and you go, who the hell's next? We got absolutely nobody to give Valentina Shevchenko. So I like that fight. It makes sense, but under these circumstances that the division's in, Darby Crash, to answer your question, under these circumstances, I don't think it makes sense. Your thoughts on Giga Cassie versus Korean Zombie? I said this on my recap for UFC Vegas 13 last Saturday. Giga is fun, man. Giga's fun. Giga Cassie's fun. He's got great striking, and he's a great addition to 145 pounds. Now, I think he as good as he is, and as good as he promises to be as well. I think a slower approach, and you guys know me, I like sort of a slower build up for fighters. I kind of like the boxing model where they're tested everywhere and they make sure they're 100% ready to fight for a belt by going, 20-0, 30-0, very normal in boxing. And they just get a bunch of different lower level styles so they can kind of, see what's up, right? But yeah, with Giga, I think the Korean Zombie fight would be amazing, but I think it'd be a step up, too big in my opinion. I think the fight that he called for was the perfect fight, and props to him because many fighters want to just fight the best, and all power to them. Obviously, they have a different mindset than I do and everybody else does. That's why they're fighters, and they strive to be the best in a very, very difficult sport. But sometimes asking for too much can get you in trouble and put you into fights that you don't belong in, and that can hurt your career, So a good example in that division will probably be Frankie Edgar versus Jair Rodriguez. You know what I'm saying? So I think the fight that he called for with Stevens is the perfect step up. Again, a bigger step up in name, a bigger step up in rankings, bigger step up in fighting now a vet with experience and an established name in the weight class. It all makes sense. But at the same time, he's not fighting a Korean Zombie. He's not fighting a top 5. So I think make the Stevens one. If he gets past Stevens and if Korean Zombie is available, I think then it kind of makes sense. But as of now, don't like the fight. I much prefer a fight with Jeremy Stevens. In between the links is Mike Heck. Oh yeah. No, I've actually been in between the links before, prior to MMA fighting. Yes, I forgot they did bring that show over. I haven't checked it out, to be quite honest, but I was on one of the episodes with Mike Heck when he was the Loud Mouth Podcasting Network, I believe it was called. Where it's called, with I'm following them on Twitter. I'm blanking on their names. All great dudes, and I've met a few of them. Whatever. I'm not remembering the names as of now, but yeah, they had like this whole podcasting thing before Mike Heck joined MMA Fighting, and one of them was in between the links, I believe, and it was like a game show, and they eliminated. It was fun. I won it, by the way. Yeah, you guys can check that episode. I think that was like a year ago. I was with MMA Fighting. That was like not this summer, but 2019 summer, I think. But no, it's over on MMA Fighting. I don't think I'm gonna be on any MMA Fighting shows anytime soon. If RDA wins, Terrence asks, he would be number 7 most likely. What? Oh, as far as placement on the rankings? Yeah, probably. I have to check out the rankings. And Terrence says, I would like to see him versus Charles Oliveira. What do you think about that fight? Yeah, for sure. One of the great things about RDA dropping down to 155 pounds is that you do have all these younger names, and I mean younger as far as like new to the division, new to the rankings, new to being part of the elite, right? Because there's some names that are already in their 30s, so to say that they're young, no, I'm not calling them old, but to say that they're 22, 23, obviously wouldn't be accurate. But Dan Hooker is one of them. He's kind of been up there a little bit, but we can all say he's on his way up rather than he's already there or he's on his way down, right? Charles Oliveira, another guy that's young, on his way up. Gregor Gillespie, who I recently spoke to, looking for a comeback, but again, another guy that's living in New York and everything's shut down, told me he's basically illegal to train right now. So just starting to get back in the groove of things. So there's a little update for you on Gillespie. But again, another guy that's kind of just getting in the rankings, just being part of the elite. and a few others. So the great thing about RDA is that here's another guy that wants to fight, wants to, potentially get back to a title fight. And to do so, he needs to fight. And he's been out of that division for quite some time. So he's got no other option but to fight. And he's not ranked there, right? Some of these older names, former champions, like RDA that have big names, they don't want to fight the young guys because they're protecting their spot. And it sucks. I hate to see it, but I don't fault them, right? Every man for themselves in this business. But with RDA, he's going to have to log in fights in order to get where he wants. Because at this point in time, he's in no position in the rankings. So that gives the opportunity for these younger guys, like Charles Oliveira, like you mentioned there, Terrence, to get in there and fight these bigger names. And potentially, if they win, they'll propel themselves to a position where all of a sudden they got a bigger name in the weight class. They're more respected in the division. And it's a lot less harder for these other guys that are protecting their spot to turn them down, because all of a sudden they're kind of evening out the balance, right? Of weight, of who has a big name in the division, right? They're no longer the young kid in the block. All of a sudden they're the guy that beat RDA, the former champion. And if they keep logging in victories, they even that system out. So I love it. I think RDA dropping down to 155 is a great move for his career. 70 towards the end wasn't working out for him. It gives him a new division, gives him new matchups, gives him a fresh air, right? Khabib is no longer champion for now. And it also gives opportunity for these young guys to build off a name and become something in the division. So I think it makes complete sense. And I love it. Yeah, if he wins against Paul Felder, I'd love to see a Charles Oliveira fight, or Islam Makhachev, another guy that would probably benefit on beating a champion, right? Or a former champion. And yeah, I mean, that makes complete sense. I'm all in. Terrence, you are a smart man. Some of the best questions. Derby, thank you for giving some money to the super chat. And he says, what are some of your picks for the Bellator card tonight? Super stacked, and bring back the MMA. That's my favorite show of all time. No, that thing's dead as fuck. Rest in peace, MMA. Indeed, it was a great show, but it had its good run. Let's see here. Also, I'm with MMA Junkie now, and I'm super happy there. Got my Spanish podcast going on, which I'm very grateful for and having a lot of fun working on. Let's pull up the Bellator card tonight. And yeah, doing great stuff there. Fun interviews. Let's see here. Bellator 252. Dude, there's so many fucking cards these days that it's just hard to keep up and knowing what's what. Like knowing who's on the card. Like it's just too much info. Overload. But again, I'm actually going to be covering the Bellator 252 card, obviously digital from home. But yeah, they start at 4, I believe. We got Nolan King on site. And doing great, fantastic work. He's been killing it over at Bellator. And so yeah, make sure you tune into MMA Junkie for all your Bellator 252 news. We got you covered. So we got Patricio Pitbull fighting Pedro Carvalho. I think Patricio wins that. I mean, he's a huge favorite. And I think Pedro Carvalho comes from a respected gym, has put in his work, has picked up some solid victories. But, Patricio is the real deal. I think right now he's the best fighter we've seen in Bellator. Best Bellator fighter right now at the moment. And yeah, he's on a nice little win streak. Carvalho he's on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fight win streak. And he's beaten Derek Campos, very, very solid guy. Sam Sicilia, former UFC fighter, another very skilled guy. But from those guys to Patricio, that's a big jump. That's a big jump. So I expect Patricio to win this one. Then on the welterweight bout in the co-main event, we got Yaroslav Amosov versus Logan Storley. Oh, that's a good fight. Amosov is like a very quiet, soft-spoken dude. So he doesn't cause a lot of noise, and maybe a lot of people don't know him, despite him being arguably one of the best prospects in MMA, period. Not just Bellator. He's just 27 years old. He's a 90s baby, and he's 24-0. 24-0. That is a fantastic record. Dude, yeah, he's 24-0, and again, you just don't see that in MMA. And then when you see him perform in the cage, the guy's a veteran. The guy's got tons of experience despite being young in the sport as far as his age is concerned. And he's very skilled. He can do it all. He can do it all. And if you look at his record, unlike these guys that perhaps have like really nice looking records, but if you look at their actual history, their actual curriculum, it might not be that good, right? But with this guy, it's actually quite the opposite. I mean, it's a nice, solid, and respected 24-0. I mean, keep this in mind that he was a champion in another promotion over in Russia. He was a champion at Tech Krep FC. He won the welterweight title, and he defended it twice. So he does have some championship experience as well. He's been in there for fights that are supposed to be 5 rounds. So he knows what it takes to prepare for 5-round bouts. So he's got that experience in his pocket. And then his Bellator run, he's beaten a very, very good opposition. I mean, Gerald Harris is legit, dude. He's very, very good. A very hard fighter to beat. Obviously, former UFC fighter, former Bellator fighter, former Dream fighter, former World Series of Fighting fighter. I mean, the guy's just been around everywhere and has a very, very good record. Only loses to the very best. And so he beat him. He also has a win over Eric Silva, who's very good, right? I mean, I'm not saying the guy's the best in the world, but Eric Silva, again, fought in the UFC, a veteran, very good striker, beat him. Beat David Rickles, who's a veteran. Beat Ed Ruth, who's a prospect, right? Very solid prospect. And yeah, I mean, he's been looking good. So this is a big fight for him. Logan Storley has a good wrestling base. So we'll see how he deals with that. But I expect Amosov to get a victory here. Very good prospect. Keep an eye on this guy. And then back to featherweight, Daniel Weichel is fighting Emmanuel Sanchez in a rematch. And obviously this is part of the featherweight Grand Prix. I think obviously Sanchez lost to Weichel via split decision years ago in 2016. At that time, he was a little bit of a prospect, right? That was 4 years ago. He was 26 years old. Emmanuel Sanchez is 30 now. I actually like Emmanuel Sanchez a lot. I think he's got a great style and very promising guy. And Weichel, who was maybe in his prime back then, 4 years ago, he was like 31. He's 35 now. So, perhaps a little bit, not over the hill. He's still looking good out there. But, again, not as young as he used to be. So, since, he is coming off a win, but prior to that, 2 defeats. So I'm actually going to go with the guy who lost the first fight with Emmanuel Sanchez. I think he beats Daniel Weichel in this one. And then on the preliminary card, there's a bunch of guys that I don't know. Obviously, I know David Powell, but I don't know who Manny Muro is. Aaron Pico's fighting Jon De Jesus. I actually know who Jon De Jesus is. I covered his career coming up in South Florida. He used to fight a lot in South Florida, trained out of American Top Team, if I'm not mistaken. Let me pull up his record and tell you what fights I was in. I was there like early on to witness his professional rise, Jon De Jesus, and he's good. He's good. It surprised me actually to see him, that it took him this long to be in like a Bellator or a World Series right back then, or now PFL, because he's a very good fighter. He's 13-8, and again, which is not the greatest record, but has a loss to Bill Algeo, who's in the UFC. So he fought at Fight Time Promotions. That's the promotion I started covering when I started getting a foot in this game. So I was there for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of his fights. So I know a good deal about him. Very good fighter. Very good fighter. Good striking. Very powerful. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But Aaron Pico is Aaron Pico. So I got Aaron Pico winning in that one. But don't sleep on Jon De Jesus. He's actually good. This might seem like Bellator's just bringing in a random guy to fight in Aaron Pico. No. Jon De Jesus is legit. So Pico's got a tough fight in front of him. So we'll see what happens there. But I got Pico in that one. All right, so any more questions? We got 4 minutes left on before we hit the hour mark. If not, I'm gonna call it quits here. We're pretty close to the hour mark, so it makes sense. So if you got any more questions, throw some stuff now. Now's your chance, or probably wait to maybe I'm gonna do another live reaction after this weekend's UFC events. I feel like you guys have been digging those, so might be back this weekend with another live video. But anyways, I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate everybody who donated to the super chat. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate everybody that sent me a congrats and some support and showing me some love for my 1-year anniversary with MMA Junkie. Very happy with the site. Super proud about some of my work there. They're letting me do very, very cool stuff, especially in my native tongue, in Spanish. So I appreciate their support. It's been a phenomenal year. Honestly, it's been like I've been there for like 3 years. The whole pandemic and this whole 2020 has just been the longest year of my life. It just felt like 2 years packed in one. But neither here or there. I mean, I've had a great time at MMA Junkie and to many more years. So I got my coffee here. Cheers. Again, subscribe to his YouTube channel if you have not already. Tell your friends about it. Share this video on Twitter. I'll retweet you. And again, you can follow me on all social media at Danny Segura TV right here. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And yeah, so make sure you follow me there to keep up with all my latest work. By the way, little news. On Monday's episode of Hablemos MMA, I'm going to have Cynthia Calvillo on. So that's going to be Calvillo. That's going to be an interesting conversation. Obviously, she's going to have a big fight coming up with Caitlin Chukagian at UFC 255. So looking forward to esa conversación con Cynthia Calvillo. So again, thank you very much for tuning in. Enjoy the Bellator fights this weekend. Make sure you tune into MMAJunkie.com for all your Bellator news. And enjoy the fights this weekend as well with UFC. Talk to you guys potentially on a Saturday night after the event. Let me know if you guys want a reaction video, and I'll crank that out. All right? Later.